Welcome to Remove Before Flight, where we help prepare veterans to start, grow, or scale a business. Welcome back to another episode of Remove Before Flight. In this episode, sponsored by EarQ, a company who has been transforming the lives of those who experience difficulties with their hearing, we had the pleasure of speaking with Charlotte Creech from Patriot Bootcamp, a great resource for any veteran entrepreneur in the tech space. I personally am a PBC alumni, having attended the San Antonio Bootcamp in February 2017. Do you constantly have a humming in your ears? Feel like you're underwater? Hear a buzzing or ringing sound? This is a condition known as tinnitus. Tinnitus is the number one disability at the VA. Due to the nature of many jobs in the military, or for anyone who has been in a war zone for any length of time, then chances are you have it. Personally, I know I have it, and have been suffering for many years with it. Don't let it ruin your lifestyle. Get it treated today. Be sure to visit this episode's show note page at changeyourpov.com/RBF008 for some helpful links in learning more about hearing loss among the veteran community. Schedule a free hearing screening at your local EarQ provider by visiting earq.com. Without further ado, let's welcome Charlotte to Remove Before Flight and ask her to give us her 30,000-foot overview in her own words.
Sure. Well, first and foremost, I'm the CEO of Patriot Bootcamp, which is a nonprofit that helps military veterans and spouses start and scale technology companies. Aside from that, I am the spouse of an Air Force combat veteran, and I have two other siblings that served in the military as well. My husband's currently a DoD firefighter at Fort Hood, so still very involved in the military community. And I've been an entrepreneur, so I had worked on building a tech startup myself a couple years ago, and that's what led me to Patriot Bootcamp and to my current role.
Nice. How would you say that being a former military and now veteran spouse has impacted your life to make you who you are today?
Well, first and foremost, I'd say it makes you humble. I have so much appreciation for those who serve. I haven't served myself, but I consider my experience witnessing my husband's transition and going through his combat deployment, that was really what prompted me and what sparked my interest in giving back to the military and veteran community. So certainly my involvement with the military has had a really strong impact in that it's what motivated me to start my tech company and to really give back to the community as a whole. Nice.
So prior to joining Patriot Bootcamp, you had experience as an entrepreneur with Combat to Career, as well as running a technology incubator program for the University of Connecticut. Can you tell us about these experiences?
Sure. So the second one, running the technology incubation program, I had started my career in financial services and had a great job, but realized I wasn't truly passionate about working in corporate America. So I had given up that position to go back to school full-time for my master's degree. And it was while I was completing my degree that I took some entrepreneurial studies courses and had the privilege of consulting for a high-growth technology startup. So when I was working with that founder, I really had the opportunity to see what startup life was all about and to watch this founder grow a business and raise venture capital and, make product tweaks and all that fun stuff. So that was my first introduction to entrepreneurship. And then as I was wrapping up my degree and figuring out what I wanted to do next, I had an opportunity to kind of continue that consulting agreement and work for the university. So they had a technology incubation program at the University of Connecticut. And it was an incubator, so it provided workspace and resources and mentoring for primarily tech startups in the health field. So biotech, farm tech, all that kind of fun stuff. And that was a really great experience. In that role, I was more of a facilitator, so I wasn't directly running a company myself, but it was a great transition point that led me from my entrepreneurial studies in an academic environment to working with entrepreneurs and kind of observing how they start and grow companies, which then led me to start my own company.
Nice. Now, you've watched your husband struggle through that transition that many of us have had to go through, going from military to civilian life. And that's what you kind of stated was your drive for the vision behind Combat to Career. At what point in this search to resolve the struggle did you realize that there was a business idea in it?
Yeah, that's a great question. It started with my experience just witnessing my husband, and the biggest frustration is you don't know what you don't know. So getting out of the military, of course, there are a sea of resources available, but how do you find them? How do you connect with them? How do you know which ones are reputable and legitimate or the best fit for you? So much is done by word of mouth referrals, and sometimes that works well and sometimes it doesn't. And so as I was watching my husband trying to help him figure out his next steps, I started having conversations with other military spouses, other veteran service organizations, and other veterans themselves that were struggling through the same problems and challenges. And so it was sort of all of those factors combined where I had that realization that it wasn't just my husband. He wasn't the outlier, that this was a problem and a challenge plaguing thousands and thousands of veterans every year. And that's when I really started to think about it as a business as opposed to just, a point in time that I was trying to help my husband with.
Absolutely. Now, Combat to Career, it wasn't just yourself. You had a co-founder. Can you tell us some of the pros and cons that you experienced by having a partner?
Sure. On the pros side, definitely bringing in someone else that can complement your skills. So, given that our startup was focused on serving the veteran community, it helped that my co-founder was a veteran, had served in the Coast Guard, went to the Coast Guard Academy, had deep experience in military ties. She was also a military spouse at the time. So, she brought great access to military resources that as just a spouse, I didn't have. And certainly in terms of diversity of experience, our skills were very complementary. I had worked in corporate America for a Fortune 500 company. I had negotiated contracts. I had a business degree. I had done sales and business development before. She didn't really have any of that experience coming out of the military. So by our powers combined, we were really able to kind of fill those critical gaps of what you need to start a company. Another huge pro is just having somebody to go through the journey with. Entrepreneurship can be really lonely and isolating at times. And although it's a great opportunity and experience, you're going to have your good days and your bad days. And so just having somebody to go through those ups and downs with you and bring you up when you're feeling low and vice versa is really, really critical. It's hard to go it alone when you're starting a company and when there's so many things that you have to juggle on a daily basis. So those are all strong pros. I'd say on the cons side, it's like marrying somebody. So every little detail matters. Everything needs to be discussed and mapped out. And inevitably, even if you're great friends with your co-founder, things are going to come up over time where you either don't agree or have a different vision. So those can be challenging moments. For my co-founder and myself with our relationship, she was still, although she had separated from the military, her husband was still active duty. So she also PCS'd 2 different times in the 4 years that we were running our company, which made it incredibly challenging because a lot of our initial contracts required in-person meetings with our clients. And even just for sales and business development, it's much easier to have those initial conversations in person. So, she being relocated across the country twice within such a short period of time did pose a big challenge for the business. And it was also a personal challenge too, because every time she moved, she lost her local network and her local community and had to rebuild from scratch. So, just juggling some of those factors can be really challenging.
Absolutely. That's a huge struggle when you have to pack up and move across country and trying to run a business. And as far as, having a partner, I've seen a lot of friendships get ruined over time from them partnering up for a business. Or the other mistake that a lot of people will tend to make is they'll partner with family members. And those cause some struggles down the road when they don't plan things out ahead of time. So now you don't get to be a successful entrepreneur without some failures. However, we can teach others from these failures by not letting them make the same mistakes. What have been some of your failures and what did you learn from them?
Great question. So Combat to Career, my startup, was ultimately a failure. The outcome, the business did not survive, although we had some great wins and customers and product traction along the way. The journey was still a great experience, but again, the outcome was a failure. And I learned so much from that process. I think, it's easy to look back and know what you would do differently now. The biggest thing for me was focus. When you're an entrepreneur, it's easy to get distracted. You have conversations with so many different people and investors and, sales and business development contacts, and everybody wants to pull you in a different direction. And it's really hard to know which direction is the right way to go. So I think if I had to do it all over again, my biggest piece of advice would be to just, focus on the one thing that you want to master and be the best at, and relentlessly execute on that one thing instead of trying to be all things to all people.
Absolutely. All right. I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about what you're doing today. You're part of Patriot Bootcamp. Can you give us a brief history on Patriot Bootcamp and how it serves the veteran community?
Definitely. So Patriot Bootcamp started in 2012. It was originally a volunteer effort organized under the Techstars Accelerator. The founder of Patriot Bootcamp is Taylor McLemore, and at the time he was taking his startup through the Techstars Accelerator out of Boulder, Colorado, and so had some interesting conversations with Techstars leadership about how we can get more veterans and military spouses into tech in general, whether it's as employees of tech startups or whether it's as founders of their own ventures. But there just seemed to be a huge gap of, introducing veterans to the opportunity. And so the leaders at Techstars said, go ahead, Taylor, put something together and we'll support it. So Taylor took his experience going through the 3-month Techstars Accelerator and distilled it into a 3-day intensive boot camp program for active duty military veterans and spouses that wanted to start technology-focused companies. So it launched in 2012 in Washington, D.C. I went through that cohort as an entrepreneur running Combat to Career, and we all had such a great experience as entrepreneurs going through the program. It just opened up a world of opportunities and access to mentors that I would have not otherwise had. So we all begged Taylor to run the program again the following year. So it went through a second iteration in the summer of 2013, and then he ran it 2 more times in 2014. And it was at that point where the demand kept increasing, and he realized he really needed to make it a formal company. So he filed for 501c3 status. It became officially recognized as a nonprofit in 2015, and that's when I was brought on to be one of the first full-time employees to run the organization, and I've been doing that for the last 2 years. So total, we've run 10 of these 3-day boot camps since 2012. We've had about 600 veteran and military spouse entrepreneurs come through the program. We've done it in 8 different cities across the country, and we've seen some really incredible outcomes and growth stories. So it's been a fun ride. And where we're headed next, we just launched a program in partnership with WeWork called Veterans in Residence. And this is a great way to keep our alumni base that's dispersed across the country engaged in their own local communities and to continue to provide mentorship and access to community resources, and also a physical space where they can convene and continue to run and grow their businesses.
Absolutely. Personally, I've been through the Patriot Bootcamp. I attended this past February in San Antonio, Texas. So it was a great break for me to get out of snowy Syracuse and go to someplace decent. Now, having you just explain the partnership between Techstars and how everything got started, it tells me a little bit more about why it's always, branded as Patriot Bootcamp presented by Techstars. But the program is available for veterans and spouses at no cost outside of travel. Can you tell us some of the success stories that have come out of Patriot Bootcamp?
Sure, I'd love to. Yeah, my favorite thing to do is to talk about our alumni. So probably the most public-facing success stories are that we've had a few entrepreneurs appear on ABC's Shark Tank reality show. So last year we had Angela Cody Rouget, her company is called Major Mom. She appeared in February, and so did Greg Coleman, whose company is called Sworkit. Angela did not get an investment from the Sharks, but she still had a great experience going on the show and actually came to one of our Patriot Bootcamp programs to talk about that and to coach the entrepreneurs on tips and tricks for getting on the show. And then Greg's company, Sworkit, received a $1.5 million offer from Mark Cuban. So that was really exciting. Unfortunately, the deal fell through after the show, but he was able to raise venture capital from a different investor, and his company is doing really well and growing fast. So those are two exciting ones. We've also had 8 of our alumni come out of Patriot Bootcamp and get accepted into different Techstars accelerator programs across the country. We've had 2 get accepted to Y Combinator, and a bunch more accepted to all different accelerator programs nationwide. So that's a really great stepping stone in building your business. We've had, I think, 4 of our alumni companies get acquired and have successful exits. So, I mean, that's ultimately most startup founders' dreams, is to not only build a company, but to see it have a successful exit and to know that, you know, all of their hard work paid off and was the result of that. So those are just a few examples, but, you know, ultimately what I get excited about is just seeing our entrepreneurs and our alumni grow. And not everybody is building a business that is a good fit for venture capital, and that's fine. We have a bunch of social impact entrepreneurs that come through our program too, and it's really incredible to see the change in their communities that their companies are making.
Absolutely. My business in particular, I run a digital marketing and web development company, and meeting with some of the mentors down there when I attended Patriot Bootcamp, one of them was a financial investor who told me if I ever take money from a guy like him, he'll hunt me down. So it means something when they can turn around and say that, hey, your business doesn't need somebody like me to fund you. You know, go out there and just do it and make the money. And with that, I noticed that, you know, Patriot Bootcamp focuses heavily on mentorship. Yeah, how important is it to an entrepreneur to have the right mentors to guide them? And I did say mentors with an S on purpose, because I've seen too many people think that they only need one, and that one will have all the answers. Definitely.
In my opinion, finding the right mentors is one, if not the most critical steps of growing a company. As a startup founder, you can't possibly know everything and have subject matter expertise in every facet of building a business. So you really need to seek out and connect with high quality mentors that understand your situation, understand the market opportunity, understand the product you're trying to build, and ultimately the vision you're trying to execute on. So I agree with you completely, Kevin. It's not an exclusive mentor relationship. Ideally, you want to have many mentors, and those mentors may even change over time as your company changes, as your product evolves, or just as your stage of business evolves. And that's fine. So the cool thing about mentors is they're there to help you. They're there to help you grow and help prevent you from making mistakes. You don't have to marry them. You don't have to stay engaged to them forever, but they're there to help you, you know, at a point in time on particular business needs and challenges that would be hard for you to navigate alone.
Absolutely. So Patriot Bootcamp does have some requirements to attend. If you could briefly touch on them, and also let us know that if a candidate applies and if they're not a right fit, does Patriot Bootcamp have other programs which they recommend to the applicant?
Sure. So basic eligibility requirement, first and foremost, you need to be either a current or prior service member, or the spouse of a current or prior service member. As you mentioned before, if you're accepted, the program is offered completely free of charge. The entrepreneur is responsible for any travel or accommodations if they need to come in from out of town, but there's no cost to attend the 3-day program. Other eligibility requirements. So with our 3-day boot camp, it's focused exclusively on scalable technology ventures. Preferably the entrepreneur needs to already have a solid vision or idea for the company that they want to start, and they need to at least know, what type of technology it would run off of. And the reason for that is really just it's hard to have a productive mentor conversation during the program if you don't at least have a business idea to discuss. So they don't have to already be developing the product, but they need to at least know what they're trying to accomplish. And it should have some focus on technology, whether that's software as a service, hardware, other software, mobile apps, etc. But we do take a pretty loose and liberal definition of what a tech company is. So it could very well be an e-commerce business, or it could be a company that starts off more on the consulting side of things, but has a way to scale the product or service via technology or via customer acquisition on an e-commerce platform, etc. So those are the main requirements. And then, of course, they have to be able to commit to attend the program in person for the 3 days.
Absolutely. So what, Charlotte, drives you to be a part of Patriot Bootcamp?
Great question. Really it's about giving back. I benefited from the program so much as an entrepreneur. And as I said before, I think, coming through Patriot Bootcamp opened up a network and a community of mentors and other leaders that I would have never had access to otherwise. And it also is a kind of a pre-vetted community because it carries mentors that come from Techstars and other really reputable organizations. So they have legitimate experience, and they're there for the sole purpose of giving back and to help entrepreneurs succeed. So I really see my current role as my way of giving back to show appreciation and thanks for the incredible experience that I was privileged to have when I went through the program. And certainly the connection and the ongoing ability to tie into the military and veteran community and give back there is really important to me because, again, I have so much respect for what our service members do and the sacrifices they make. And it's important to me that this be my way of giving back to the community as a non-service member myself.
Nice. Now, you had mentioned previously a new program that you're rolling out with WeWork about the veterans in residence. Could you go into a little bit more details on that?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So we are starting with pilot locations in Austin, Texas, and Denver, Colorado. But the plan is to roll out in 12 cities nationwide within the next 2 years. So the partnership is with WeWork. For those who may not be familiar with WeWork, it is a co-working facility which has locations around the world. So you can sublease office space, like private offices, or just have a reserved desk. And then they also have what they call hot desk memberships, which are kind of open seating where you can go and work every day, and it comes with the amenities of a full office. So you'd have access to free Wi-Fi and coffee and beer and printing services, conference rooms, etc. So really, as an entrepreneur, it's a great place to start out. It's kind of a step above growing a business out of your home. And then it's surrounded by a community. So at the core, you have workspace to work out of every day. But WeWork also provides a huge community of over 100,000 other entrepreneurs, freelancers, creators, innovators, etc. across the world. So being in a really exciting environment with other like-minded people that are also, starting businesses, generating ideas, and are really passionate about working with entrepreneurs is a huge benefit as well. So that's what WeWork is. And our partnership with them is called the Veterans in Residence Program. What it looks like is that WeWork is donating office space in the Veterans in Residence Program locations that we're selecting. And then they're also giving us 10 hot desk memberships in each location. So we can then give out those 10 hot desk memberships to our alumni and to the individuals that we choose to be veterans in residence. So it's a combination of, again, shared workspace that we can give out for free to veteran and military spouse entrepreneurs to help them grow their businesses. But then we'll also be providing local mentorship, weekly events, monthly community events and workshops, and partnering with other VSOs and service providers. So it's really about community building within and for the veteran and military spouse community.
Absolutely. That is huge. I hope that the people who are recipients of this realize the value that they're getting through that program. I wish WeWork had a location here in Syracuse. We do have a couple facilities similar to it, but a lot of them have waiting lists to get in because they're just in such demand.
For sure. Yeah, I think the closest one to you is probably in New York City, and I expect that will be one of the locations that will launch a program in shortly.
Yeah, unfortunately, that is a long commute every day.
Quite a drive.
So it's a 4-hour one-way trip at minimum would make it tough to get to work every day. But, there is an opportunity to occasionally use it or create a business that travels around. So there's always a plus there. So since being part of Patriot Bootcamp, what would you say has been your most satisfying moment?
Oh, man. Well, I'm not kidding when I say my favorite part of the job is working with the alumni and the incredible entrepreneurs that come through our program. I think what's most satisfying for me is when I get feedback from them saying that something really positive happened as a result of Patriot Bootcamp or as a result of a direct connection that I made for them. So those are always my most gratifying moments. And I take pride and joy in just knowing that I've made a difference for somebody else.
Absolutely. Okay, so there's one question that I like to ask all of my guests, and that is, if you could talk to one person from any point in history, who would it be and why?
That's a tough one. I think I'd have to go with Indra Nooyi. She is the current CEO of PepsiCo, which I happen to be a shareholder in and a great admirer of the company. But Indra is just a really unbelievable dynamic leader and somebody that I would love to have lunch with. She comes from very humble beginnings in India and is a completely self-made woman that, through hard work ethic, just made her way up the chain to become the CEO of Pepsi, which is, I think, about a $150 billion company. So I can't even imagine what obstacles she had to overcome, being a foreign-born individual coming to America, being a female, and so many other things as well. So she just really inspires me. I think what's interesting about Pepsi is how the company has grown via acquisitions and product extensions over the years, and how really their culture is what drives them. And they do a lot to give back to the community. And I think Indra is just an incredible leader because she clearly has great business acumen to be in the position she is, but she also brings a human element to the role that I think a lot of other similar leaders don't necessarily have. And one interesting thing I was just reading about her, she writes letters to the parents of her senior management team. And the reason for doing that is because she said the parents of great leaders play a huge role in making them successful, but often never get recognized for all the hard work that goes into raising that individual. And so I read in this article, I think it was on Forbes, it said she writes about 400 letters every year to the parents of her senior leaders. And I think that's just an incredible show of what a leader she is and how really the human element plays a huge part in building Pepsi's culture.
Absolutely. That is huge. I don't think I've heard of anybody taking that approach before. So, yeah, and it's interesting too, when you look at Pepsi, a lot of people don't realize how versed they are in the things that they have their hands into and what they do own. It's just, it just amazes me, when you start peeling back some of the layers, what they've gotten involved with over the years to make sure that, no matter what they're doing, one sector of it is not going to take down the company if something goes awry or disappears. But Charlotte, I know you're a busy gal, and I appreciate the time you've given us. I know our listeners enjoy the great value you've brought to the show today. Before we go, is there anything else you'd like to share?
Well, I'd like to, thank the audience for anybody that's listening that is a service member or a veteran or a family member of somebody that served, thank you for your contributions and your service. And if there's anything I can do to be helpful to you, please reach out to me. My email address is charlotte@patriotbootcamp.org, and I'm always happy to help anyone in need. As far as questions, I think we covered most everything, but if I can give a quick plug again for just Patriot Bootcamp in general and the services that we provide, all of that information can be found on our website, which is patriotbootcamp.org.
I highly advise all of you out there to take a look at PBC and get into their next boot camp. It is an awesome opportunity to meet with some great mentors. Visit the show notes page at changeyourpov.com/RBF008 for links to PBC and other great tips from today's episode. We would like to thank EarQ for sponsoring our show today, as well as putting together a veteran hearing study. Please take a few moments and complete this survey by visiting veteranhearingstudy.com. All right. So I got to answer the questions that everybody's been asking. You know, for those of you that are following this show each and every week, you may have noticed that there's been a little bit of delay between episode 7 and episode 8. Not that long, a couple of weeks. But I just had a lot of stuff going on in my personal life, as well as reviewing some of the feedback that's come in from the listeners to the show. And with that, we've been doing some research over here at Remove Before Flight and Change Your POV and deciding what is the best way to tackle all of this information that we want to bring to you. And we've decided that trying to put an interview and a marketing tip together in the same episode is just insane. Not only is it insane on us to ask you to sit down and listen to that length of content, but in turn, we have to produce that content. So we have to do all the research, we have to do the interview, there's all kinds of stuff that goes into putting each week's episode together. So sitting down with Bennett, and I kind of picked his brain a little bit last week and had some great conversations with him, and we formulated together an idea that maybe doing both of them in the same episode is just too much. We got to stop it, and that going forward we are going to do either an interview or discuss about a product or a service or something that's out there, or bring you some great value in a marketing tip. So for those of you that were looking for that next step in our SEO series today, I'm sorry, you're not going to get it. You're going to have to wait another week. I will begin the SEO series back up again next week on episode 9. So be sure to tune in next week and listen to episode 9. So with that, I got to get out of here. We're running longer than I wanted to for this episode, but I really felt I needed to explain to you what was going on. So guys, please keep listening. We'll catch you next week with some more marketing tips. And please reach out to me. Give me your feedback. Let us know what you like, what you don't like about the show. And it doesn't have to be just Remove Before Flight. It could be any show on the Change Your POV network. Reach out to any one of us, any one of the hosts. Let us know. Do you love it? Do you hate it? Hey, everything's great. All right, everybody. It's time to wrap up this show and get out of here. Life is short. Don't just dream, do! We will see you next week on Remove Before Flight. Thank you for listening.